Welcome to Om on the Range, where we share the practice of meditation, the wisdom of Western Buddhism, and the refuge of our community. Whether you are new to meditation or a longtime practitioner, committed or curious, this offering is here to share solutions, stories, and support. Happiness and better health are available to everyone. It just takes practice. This is Om on the Range. It's the second week in February, and Valentine's Day is quickly approaching. It's a time of love, romance, panic, and disappointment. This can be a tough holiday, and we're going to break it down and offer some tips regarding love and all that it entails. It's episode number 29. My name is Whit, and this is Om on the Range. Welcome to you all. This week, we welcome back Steph Watkins as co-host here at OTR. Steph, welcome. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks, Whit. How are you doing?
I'm good. So today we have agreed that we are going to cover love, romance, relationships, a little bit about the holiday, about Valentine's Day, and we're going to try to cover all that from a Western Buddhist perspective. So if you're ready, are you a fan of Valentine's Day?
I'd have to say yes. I mean, I like the idea of sharing love with people. I like scissors and construction paper for making Valentine's Day cards.
Right.
The artist in me does enjoy that. Yeah.
I think that's great. I profess to be a big fan of holidays. I think when we were covering Christmas and Thanksgiving, I was quoted, or I said that was true for me, and that I kind of embrace all holidays. Any of them that would have me, I was happy to jump in on. But Valentine's Day is a little bit different. It's so full of expectations, and it's not particularly well defined. I think it's an interesting holiday, and also where it falls on the calendar. It's February. I don't know that February is the most depressing month, but it's in the top two, I would think. And we're right in the middle of winter, and so Valentine's Day comes along, and there's a lot of tradition to it, but it's not real well defined. And
it's different every year, because you might be with somebody one year and then you're not with somebody the next year, or you might be with the same person for 30 years, like in your case.
Right.
And then it feels different every year.
It does.
So, I mean, I guess other holidays feel different every year, but this one in particular can be a roller coaster ride.
Yeah, because it invites you to kind of analyze the romantic aspect of your life, or the love in your life.
And you're comparing.
Yeah.
And you're doing a lot of comparing at this time. It's like, oh, is this relationship measuring up to my ideal, or our inherited cultural ideal of what romantic love is supposed to look like? And there's a lot going on there.
Right. And then you're bombarded with commercials and all sorts of different organizations reaching out to you, trying to get you to purchase gifts and dinners. And in theory, none of that's wrong. It's a great idea to say, hey, I'm going to have a day to honor and appreciate whatever love looks like in my life.
Yeah. And
that's great. But I also think that once you get some marketing people involved, once Hallmark got their hands on it, that it becomes more about spending money and proving your love a little bit.
Yeah, so, you're so right. So that leads us to, like, how do we define love? As Western Buddhists, how do we look at love, and how is that different than what our culture has trained us to think of as love?
I think that's a good question. Do you have a good definition for love?
Oh, I mean, I've always thought of love. I know the first thing we want to say is love is a feeling, but I also think that love is an intention. So for me, as I age, I see love as an intention more and more.
I think that's true. I think when you're in your teens, maybe even before your teens, when you start to become aware of attraction, whatever age that is. And it really even doesn't have to be you becoming aware of attraction, but as it becomes attraction becomes a part of your peer group.
Mhm.
You start to understand, you start to look for that special feeling.
Mhm.
Um, and unfortunately, those feelings are so new and so strong at such an early age that no one ever sets you down and says, "Hey, these aren't going to last," and this is attraction, and it's not really love.
And even if they did sit you down and say that to you, you're not going to listen to it because the
Right,
hormones are
right,
so strong. So I think it's important to talk about what does make love last.
right,
What does make romantic love last? It's not just fall in love, get married, and live happily ever after. There's so much going on there. And so many people will walk away from a relationship because it's not showing up as this ideal romantic thing that our culture tells us it's supposed to be.
right,
And so that's what we have to look at is how do we make love intentional? How do we make love last?
right, right.
And I think our Western Buddhist path gives us sort of a framework to build a lasting, loving relationship.
What were some of your other relationships like?
Oh, tumultuous, full of drama.
Right,
Um, just it's like Terry Real in his book Us talks about the adaptive child in us and the wise adult in us. I mean, I guess you could look at it like the prefrontal cortex and the amygdala in the brain. So I feel like most of my relationships in my past were like two adaptive children fighting each other, and
right,
we couldn't get past our traumas, past our ideas and our concepts and our perspectives and listen to each other. And so you just end up fighting, and then you're like, well, this isn't meant to be,
right,
and so you
right.
just walk away from it. And yeah, I would have to say that's what all my relationships in the past looked like.
You know, uh, with relationships, and as you age, I think you gain some maturity, and so you can certainly get better at relationships,
Mhm.
whether it's moving from one to the next, whether there's a progression or whether you're with the same partner for a long period of time.
Yeah.
You still have to be able to evolve because you're not the same person, they're not the same person,
Right.
the circumstances aren't the same. We always like to bring up impermanence when we can on this podcast. And so impermanence is certainly at play where things are changing. Some things are decaying and going away, and other things are showing up and becoming more prominent. And relationships are a great kind of a petri dish for that, for how impermanence works. But it's so much more difficult because even as everything changes internally, a lot of times people hang on to feelings and thoughts and the history of the relationship. And so it's difficult to see it in a new way,
Mhm.
whatever that means. And
Mhm.
and you hit upon it a moment ago. A lot of times what happens is that when it changes too much or it no longer looks like what we think it needs to look like, we we say, well, this isn't working,
Yeah.
and we walk away.
We move on. And
Right.
in my case, because I have never been married, I just go from, I'm just a serial monogamer,
Mm-hmm.
relationship to relationship. I did evolve from relationship to relationship and grow and see what mistakes I made, and I look back and I cringe at my former self. And I guess if you're not cringing when you look backwards, you're not really growing.
Right.
So
You're not looking the right direction either. You're
yeah,
looking at
so
somebody else.
so I can definitely look back and cringe at my younger self, and now, I can take all that wisdom that I've gained from impermanence in relationships and the way things have evolved, and just really have a nice relationship with the person that I'm with now.
I think it's also interesting that some people have a relationship, they go through a marriage, for example,
Mhm.
it doesn't work. And so they get a divorce and they think, I learned so much. I learned so much about myself and about how these things work. And so then they meet someone again and they get married again. And then it falls apart again.
Yes.
And I think it's interesting. And then at that point, some people reach 2 or 3 times through. They're like, "Hey, marriage just isn't for me."
Right.
And it's like, "Hey, that's not really the lesson here."
Absolutely.
There are a lot of lessons here, but that's not necessarily one of them.
Okay, I'm going to plug Terry Real's book again.
Okay, go ahead.
In his book, he also says that, there's disharmony, and then you go back to Pleasantville and you don't really repair. You just kind of go back to, hey, you want to go get a hot dog, or whatever. And you don't really get to why you are fighting.
Right.
And then you don't have any repair.
Right.
And I think you can do that from relationship to relationship, or you can do it within a marriage.
Yeah.
And you can say, oh, we had a fight. Let's just kiss and make up. And then you move on. And then next thing you know, 2 weeks down the road, you're having the same fight again.
Right.
So now we need to talk about, like, what's the repair part? What guidelines or guardrails are we going to use to help us get back to repair or get to repair?
Right.
So that we can evolve and have a new relationship and be closer.
Yeah, with a relationship, it's really hard to set guidelines and rules, especially early, because there is more of that infatuation and that magic and that passion.
True.
And also, you might have found the right person and this might be the right time to become a couple, but most couples don't know how to lay the groundwork for what's going to be successful. And, that can be a real challenge because it can be a difficult conversation if you're both not on the same page.
So true. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've tried to have that conversation with people in the past. Like, we need a contract between us.
Right.
That these are the guidelines for how we deal with an argument, or how we make decisions. Would you sign this?
Right. Right.
And they didn't want to sign it, or they didn't, agree, or we just weren't on the same page. We were at different stages of our lives, I guess. And so when I met Jen, I thought about having her sign a contract of, like, how I wanted to see this relationship unfold. And once we started talking about our paths and how we want to see ourselves go forward, I didn't need a contract. I knew she was on the same page. Yeah.
Well, so also, when you talk about this contract, I think it's interesting that, with the current relationship you're in, you didn't feel like that was really necessary. But you also mentioned to me earlier that contract kind of helped you better understand and better manage your expectations and what you wanted and expected, not just from your partner in the relationship, but from yourself.
Yeah, 100%. Because I was in so many tumultuous relationships, I got real clear on what it was I wanted and what I didn't want, but mostly what I wanted.
Right.
And so I started formulating this idea of a contract and writing down what it was I was looking for in a partner. And once I got really clear on that, I just thought, well, if I do meet somebody else, at least I'll know what I'm looking for now.
Right. So I think that's an excellent tip for anyone really that hasn't gone through that, is to take a moment and write down what you're looking for
100%
in a partner, in a relationship, what the expectations are for everybody involved, including yourself. Doesn't have to be doesn't have to be a contract. You don't have to get it notarized. You don't even have to share it. But I do think that it's one of those things where you can get it out onto paper and have that process be executed, and it will help you feel more comfortable with what it is you think and want from a relationship or from love.
And you'll know it when you see it.
Yeah.
I knew it when I met Jen. Like, I could see that this was a person of integrity, a person who wanted to grow, a person who wanted to talk, a person who wanted to listen.
Yeah.
So that was special.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a great, really practical piece of advice, though, for this holiday and for what love and relationships can mean, whether you're looking for someone or whether you're with someone.
Do you guys have like an agreement?
We do not, but you know what? And I'll be the first to admit that communication has taken it's taken me a while to get better at it. And you know what helped me with that was not showing up with a list of demands or expectations, but instead looking at the expectations that I had and maybe only applying them to myself, and trying to always remember that in my mind and in my heart, what I wanted for my partner was happiness, was the best that I could give them. And whenever we had problems or whenever I felt like we had problems, it was because I was judging the relationship or my partner. A lot of times I was judging them and not really communicating what it is I wanted or needed. And so, and I know a lot of people have that challenge. It's hard to communicate that. So I'm not saying this is healthy or the correct way to do it, but I would tell you that through my practice, I just decided I was going to give up some of those expectations and just let it be what it was and just accept it more and be more aware and worry about how I was showing up for the relationship as opposed to my wife.
That's revolutionary. I mean, that could change a relationship, just that one thing.
I think it did. And I think it helped me. And again, there's no survey that we take every year. So I don't really know if my wife noticed or could, but I would just tell you that it made me go from being, it helped me develop more trust in myself and in the relationship because I was, like I said, I was just going to show up and support it as opposed to judging it and expecting it to be something else or trying to guide it someplace that I wanted it to go. So that was how I finally got kind of comfortable with this. And we've been blessed. We've never really had any sort of rough patches or any real bad periods of time. But I did know that as you become more invested in the relationship, you start to understand that there's a lot about it you didn't know and you didn't really take care of and bring the right things to it. So then you got to kind of fix it on the fly. And that's fine. But as a Western Buddhist and as a practitioner, my meditation practice allowed me to develop the things that I needed to fix the relationship. Fix is the wrong word, but to create a relationship that better aligned with who I was and what I wanted. Right. And it's not just my marriage, it's all my relationships. And again, I don't know that anybody has noticed or thinks that I'm very good at relationships or not. I'm just worried about how, like I said, how I show up.
Yeah, because you're the common denominator in your life.
Right.
Right. So if things are sort of looking off kilter in several aspects in your life, it's important to look within. And that's what, and you're saying meditation helped you.
For sure. There were some things that I'd hope meditation could help with. I wouldn't say that relationships, especially romantic ones, was necessarily anything. It was just stuff that was going on internally. But again, you start to fix the stuff internally and the stuff externally also starts to fall into place as well.
Yeah.
So what practice did give me pretty quickly was a good definition for love. And for me, it is awareness, acceptance, and patience. Beautiful. I'm aware of my partner or my friend or my puppy. I accept how they are and who they are.
Yeah.
And I'm patient with them. Then that's love. And if I can just kind of stick to those things, then it'll be fun,
Wow. So that's kind of like what I was saying earlier about intention. Like you made awareness, patience, and acceptance.
Yep.
Or were your intentions for love?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And so a lot of times when I have a big concept, compassion, I use the same definition. It's awareness, acceptance, and patience for me. And it's something that through practice you gain just because you're practicing awareness. So you're going to gain more of that. Whatever you find, you're going to accept. So you're going to get more acceptance. And patience, you have to have patience if you're going to have a practice, whether you're sitting for 10 breaths for 20 minutes a day or whatever that number is.
Yes.
You have to set aside that time and understand that time is going to grow. You're going to get more space to better be who you are. So,
and we have things like that in Western Buddhism. I mean, we have a practical, intentional practice that can be guidelines or guardrails for a relationship, the Eightfold Path.
Right. Absolutely.
That could be used as your guideline.
Absolutely. Which I think is the strength of both meditation and Western Buddhism, or Buddhism, is the fact that it's so practical. If you want to help the world, if you're drawn, or if you feel that in your heart that you want to be more helpful to the world you live in, then you should practice, because it will help you develop awareness, acceptance, and patience. And it'll make it easier for all of us who have to live with you, and it'll make it easier for you to live with all of us. It's just that simple. And relationships are the same way.
Yes.
And if your relationship is troubling, I don't know whether, nobody knows for sure whether it's the right place to be at the right time. But the first thing you can do is start taking better care of yourself.
Absolutely.
Start making sure that you're showing up, and you're showing up for the right reasons. And if you can't do that, then it probably is time to reset a relationship or move on, whatever that time or whatever that process is for you. But yeah, I think that's where the real strength to Western Buddhism is. And I think the biggest difference, we touched on this before, but with Western Buddhism, you don't need a long tradition. You don't need a lot of studying. You just need to show up and be sincere, show up and do the best you can, show up and be authentic. And if you don't know who you are and what that looks like, then you should start practicing, and it'll become more aware, more available to you. I think it's also interesting that when we talk about love, it first is brought on, or you first recognize it, or it's a feeling, right? And I think I think we would both agree that really what love is a practice.
Absolutely. Yeah. We're redefining love.
Yes.
On this Valentine's Day, we're saying,
right. Then we're going to sell some cards.
So we're saying love is a practice. Love can be intentional. Love can have a format, or like a support system under it.
Right.
That is agreed upon.
In fact, I would go so far as to say that if you want more love in your life, and if you really want strong, long-lasting relationships, you have to approach them in that manner. Because if you're going to say, well, I just love the magic and the passion of love, well, that's something that's going to change.
Yes.
And that's okay. But it makes me wonder, if you're going from one relationship to the other, and it's constantly great, and then it's terrible, and I'm moving on.
Yep.
Is it love at all? I think that attraction falls into that same realm. It's very emotionally driven. It's we certainly aren't trying to deny its power, but it's just not very sustainable, and it's a tough one to figure out.
It's like hunger. Hunger gets you in the kitchen to make dinner.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And I think, again, you've got to decide, am I going to build a relationship on attraction? Because generally, not being very attractive, I don't know exactly how that feels, but generally I would wonder, those don't ever seem to last very long, and people change. What attraction is today may not be the same tomorrow. So
it's so true. So true. And my life is living proof of that.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm, attraction after attraction after attraction, but then nothing to help me move into the next phase,
right?
Into the wise adult who can navigate my triggers, my traumas that pop up,
right?
Whatever I want to bolt, that's my habit energy. My habit energy is to run and to withdraw, and Jen's habit energy is to defend and can kind of get loud. And we see these in each other now, and we know how to navigate that, and we say, oh, there's that habit energy,
right?
Let's navigate that,
right? My wife does not practice, and she may not be my wife much longer after she hears this podcast, but
that's not true.
But I think I see some real advantages to having a partner who also practices, because it gives you that opportunity to set some set the environment as to how we're going to communicate,
Yeah.
what growth looks like, and what's important and things like that.
Absolutely.
Did you have that with any other relationships?
No, not really. No.
Yeah.
Jen's really the first. I should say the last. Because we are married.
Okay. Now we've
and
got
last.
2 relationships and they're both ours. I was not in the run sheet for this show. So I will tell you also, and I kind of hit on this earlier though, but because I'm having a practice, I don't know that it's you get the benefits and so does your partner. And it helps so much to be able to have that space, because these relationships, they're complicated, they're complex.
Mhm.
No matter how well the 2 partners try to communicate and work together and support each other, there are times when things are more difficult or surprisingly difficult. I think
Oh,
is
like moving from Michigan to Kansas City.
right,
That
right.
was
But that's on both of you.
oof, that was the hardest part of our relationship so far. We've been together 4 years, and moving it really tested us
Mhm.
big time.
Yeah. You know what? And hearing you say that, I would tell you that we moved, well, hell, it's been almost 20 years now, but we moved and spent some time in another state. And that was the most stressful time. That is one of those things. It's a real trigger. And,
Yeah. Yeah.
There's a little bit of excitement. There's a ton of unknown.
Mhm.
There's also just all kinds of little things that can, some go right, some go wrong. And I know we're not supposed to judge, but that's the way it feels when you're living it, and
Yes. Yes. And people handle things differently.
Yeah.
Like Jen is very organized and determined and, plan oriented, and I'm more emotional. And I was going through grief of leaving Michigan and
right.
not quite getting too attached to being here yet. And so we were on 2 different tracks at the same time.
And yet you still did it.
Yes.
I think also it's interesting. Moving is a great example of what brings this up, but it's difficult to try to navigate when you should open your mouth and when you should keep your mouth shut
Mhm.
when you're in love or a relationship or
Mhm.
or even with romance. It's difficult because I always thought of romance as being that special place where you try to either entice or possibly attract a mate. And if you've already got a mate, it's that skill set where you remind them of how important they are. But really, there's more to it than that too, because you can sit down with your partner and go through the spreadsheet and point out to them why they're important. And by the way, that works. That's nice as well. But the flowers, the jewelry,
Mhm.
I'm doing something special for you. You never know how that's going to land.
Right.
And my experience has always been that the harder you try, the more likely it is not to land the way you think it should.
Yeah.
So,
Well, Thich Nhat Hanh says that the most important thing that we give our partners is our presence. He has this beautiful thing on YouTube with Oprah. I think he says that you can just say to your partner, darling, I am here for you. I am really here for you. And I know that you are there. And you're really there for me. And I want to be there for you. It goes on like that. And I just think it's so sweet and so powerful that it's the best thing I can give you and you give me, all of us.
right.
Whether we're in a romantic relationship or friendship relationship, the most important thing we can give each other is our presence.
Right. Right.
And so I think that's a nice thing to offer somebody on Valentine's Day, is to just sit down with them and say, how are you? What's been taking your energy lately, or what's been on your mind lately, and just really give them your full presence.
I think that's a really good idea.
Yeah.
Chocolates are also good.
Yes.
But yeah, I think you make an excellent point. And so that's a beautiful segue into, you can give your presence. I don't know how we're going to top that one for a gift to a loved one or to a partner.
I know. I can't think.
And I will say this. I think if this Valentine's Day you do not have a partner, a romantic interest, then I think it's a good time to set aside some time for yourself.
That is so great. I'm so glad we're talking about this, because I think to know what it is to show love, express love, to show presence, express presence, you have to first give it to yourself.
That's excellent. That is excellent. Yeah, absolutely.
You have to know how it feels, what it is.
Right.
Even.
I think this kind of goes back to the contract a little bit in that, hey, if you don't know what your Valentine's Day is going to look like, instead of being disappointed about what the holiday means and how it feels and fits in your life, take a moment and write down what it is you would like for it to be this year. If you don't have anybody, then what does that look like? How can you show loving kindness to yourself? And it may be something you literally need to write down and work through it. Is that a nice meal? Is that sleeping late? Is that
taking yourself out to dinner?
Yeah. Is that doing something special for yourself? Whatever you think it might be. Is it volunteer work? Is it doing something for somebody else, but doing it alone? But I think what happens is we decide we're not going to like something, and we need to take that extra step. We need to explore what that means. And that's part of the strength of Western Buddhism and having a meditation practice, being mindful, is that you accept whatever that feeling is, and then you try to work backwards and see where it came from.
And meditation is a gift of presence to yourself.
Absolutely. Well, Steph, we have come to what is pretty close to the end of our show. I want to thank you so much for co-hosting.
Thank you, Whit.
Always, your love and your wisdom is incredibly helpful on the podcast, especially when I don't bring either one. So that is.
You did. Stop saying that.
That's very much appreciated. Thank you to our listeners. Make sure you take care of each other and take care of yourselves. Try to enjoy this holiday. And if you want to email us, we can be reached at omontheRangePodcast@gmail.com. You can find us on Spotify and YouTube, as well as a couple other spots, including the Facebook page for TBC. Again, have a great holiday. This is Whit signing off and wishing you happy trails. Thanks to our On the Range production team for making this program possible, and to Mr. Brad Athey for composing and performing the original music. And to you, our listeners, thank you for being a part of this journey as we explore meditation, Western Buddhism, and the path towards a happier, healthier life. Remember, less suffering and more joy are available to everyone. It just takes practice. Until next time, stay grounded, stay kind, and keep finding peace in the simple, practical things. For all of us here at On the Range, happy trails.